nothing else we can take, so we're very happy with this peace conference. We can pause because now Communist China owns China. That's not all, however, because Japan is still here, Japan is not going anywhere, and Japan still owns territories which are our cores. So we need to take all of that back. Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. I'm very excited to finally share with you this guide, as it was requested quite a long time ago. I took several weeks to make sure that the guide is optimized to the highest standards and that RNG is reduced to the absolute minimum. In this guide, we will take Communist China as one of the smallest and weakest countries in the world, and we will turn it into a major superpower competing for total world domination. And let me tell you right away, this is a challenging run, but a very fun one. Now if that sounds interesting, then this is the right video for you. The strategy is very consistent, but there are still a couple of things that we cannot fully control. I will mention them in detail as we proceed through the run, but as always, if you have any doubts, feel free to ask in the comments and to join our Discord to meet our amazing community. Of course, if you have been following the channel and enjoying the content I make, please do not forget to support the channel by liking the video, subscribing and leaving a comment. Now that's all for the introduction, so let's get straight into our initial setup for Communist China. As usual, researches and focuses will not be covered in the edited version of the video, but you can find them in the description. One good thing about starting with such a small country is that the initial setup is actually very simple. In terms of buildings, we're just going to build one infrastructure in the only province we own. In terms of production, we are going to dedicate everything to basic infantry equipment, and we're going to adjust trade. In terms of the armies, I will rename this weaker template to Inf, and this will become actually our default template, so the smallest one. And we're actually going to select all of our divisions. We assign them to a marshal, which is going to be Mao himself. In terms of the general, we actually have quite a few good generals. We're going to use Ling Biao for this main army, and then we're going to change everyone into Inf. So we're only going to use the smaller of the two templates that we have available. Now, I usually train my armies at the beginning of a run, but we are not going to do it with China because we really lack the infantry equipment to do anything. Instead, we're going to assign them to the entire front, and we're going to prepare a spearhead to conquer Shaanxi. This will be a mess with the pronunciation, but Shaanxi. And with this, our initial setup is already done. A pretty smooth and fast one. We can go at speed 5, but pay attention because at 25 political power, we want to fabricate a claim on Shaanxi immediately. And I'm sorry for my Chinese friends, I know my pronunciation will not be good today. So justify a war goal, retake core state, whichever you want. And by the way, since we're here, let me mention a couple of things very quickly. There are a couple of paths that you can go for in terms of focuses. You can go down the right path and get focus on China and then exploit the weak neighbors. This will actually give you a claim on Shaanxi and Xibei Sama. That's one way to get claims. But in my opinion, it's actually better and faster to manually justify the claims on all of the warlords that we have next to us. So it will be these two and then Xinjiang as well, a bit later. And instead we focus on this central part of focuses, so we get rid of some of the malices, we remove power struggles, and we get Maoism, which is very good and very important for us, especially for that infantry equipment production cost discount. Okay, as we complete our first focus, we will also have enough political power to pick the army morale advisor. That's what we're going to do. First of all, he's a genius, so we get plus 0.40 per day. That's very good. And in just a few days, you should get 5 army experience, which we're going to use right away to design some new templates. One new template, actually. A very, very basic one. We go for 1 battalion of cavalry, and that's it. We're going to call it Cav. So this is a combat width of 2, and of course it has absolutely terrible stats, but that doesn't matter. We're going to recruit 5 of these divisions. And you will see in a little bit how we are going to use them. They are going to be very important for our early expansion. And by the way, with China, I think, with Communist China at least, I think going for concentrated industry is better. We need as much factory output as possible, especially early on, to get infantry equipment for our divisions. And here we go, we got our first claim, and it's time for the first war. We just started the run, but this is a very fun and active run from the very beginning, so we start with a war right away. Now the first thing we're going to do is we're going to force deploy our cavalry divisions. We can assign them to the same marshal but with a different general. And then we're going to micromanage them, so no need to assign them a front. We also want to recruit another 16 divisions of infantry. We are going to trigger our first war. And we're going to immediately start justifying a new claim on Xibei. We start our offensive with the regular infantry, and keep in mind our infantry divisions and our cavalry divisions are very, very bad. But here is the trick. As you can see, these guys don't have divisions. So it doesn't matter how bad our divisions are, we're still going to be able to push into them because they don't have divisions. And bad divisions are better than no divisions. So I usually send one of the cavalry up. And the other ones, we can rush into this. It's better to micromanage them a little bit here. While the other divisions keep theirs pinned down, as we rush the non-existent victory points in here. So of course we want to take the capital, but we don't want to send all of our cavalry there. So we can split them around like this. You select them one by one, and then you shift-click around so that they take more provinces. Now, something very important, as you can see, our stability and our war support are very, very low because we started an early war. This can trigger some bad events, and this is a bit of the run in which there is some RNG, and we cannot really fully control it. Now, the bad event would be strikes. Strikes are very annoying. If we get the draft dodges, which is the other bad event that you may get, that one is a lot more manageable. Usually this war is fast enough that you don't get those events, and then we will try to improve our stability to reduce the bad RNG as much as possible. But there is still a chance that something like that happens. And if it happens, if you have my spreadsheet, if you purchase the tier 2 membership, it explains in detail how to manage that and when to get rid of that. But of course I will mention it in the video as well later on. Unfortunately, they have a division in there. It's not great. We can let him go away. That's perfect. Okay, yeah, go there. Very nice. And now we can take it. So if they have a division in a tile which has victory points, which you need, the best thing is to let them move away, because fighting right now is very bad for us. Even if they're encircled, we have terrible divisions, we cannot really kill them. What you want to do instead is going around. And there we go. Okay, first war over. Very easy. And of course we have cores everywhere, so we can just annex everything. Now we can prepare already our armies for the next war, which will be very similar. The next opponent is a bit bigger, they have a bit more divisions, but they still don't have enough. And here the trick we are going to use is we're going to push with the infantry along this front, and we're going to send our cavalry up here, to this corner, because they don't usually have enough divisions to cover all of the provinces, and they usually leave these ones empty. So we're going to use our cavalry to push up here, while the infantry keeps everyone else pinned down in here. Now, as we complete this focus, we get rid of the malices about picking advisors, and we can pick the first advisor right away. We're going to pick the popular figurehead to increase our stability. Now, the other good option at this point would be the silent workhorse, but the popular figurehead has the advantage of reducing a little bit the bad RNG events in terms of dodge drafting and especially strikes. So to reduce the RNG, we prefer the extra stability. Extra stability also, as you know, gives additional political power and additional production. So we get a bit more guns, which are very important for us at the moment. Now, as we complete our artillery research, we are going to start producing some artillery. And we want to assign the next 2 factories to it. So we give it the highest priority, but I don't want to remove anything from infantry equipment at the moment. So the next 2 factories that we conquer will go to artillery. Alright, we got our second claim. It's time for Xibei to go down. So war on Xibei. And we immediately start a claim on Xinjiang. Now, as I mentioned earlier, our strategy here is again about micromanaging the cavalry. So what I would suggest doing is you send them all here, and then as they advance, you split them around, send them up and down to rush the victory points. I will show you how to do that. Just make sure that every single division they have is pinned by our infantry. Okay, so first tile conquered, you pick one of the cavalry divisions and you send them down the entire front. And you keep doing that as you advance. You can see how this is a very, very solid strategy. Their few divisions are all blocked, pinned here on the front, and we can easily conquer everything else with the cavalry. Cool. that's it. Sibei-sanma is down. Great news indeed, because we can annex all of it. And that is perfect. Things are looking good for us already. We started with one province and look at us. We are big. We are a big wasteland at the moment. Still, we are much bigger than before. Now, if you do get draft dodges at this point, for now you can ignore them completely. Because what draft dodges do is they decrease your manpower. But as you can see, we don't have a shortage of manpower. So we can completely ignore draft dodges until they start affecting our stability. When they start affecting our stability, we want to get rid of them. Now, of course, it is time to prepare for the next expansion, which will be against Xinjiang. So we prepare another spearhead with infantry. And usually what I do in this case is I set my cavalry on a fallback line, because we don't know exactly where they will have their divisions. So we will try to find an opening and go in with the cavalry. At 150 political power, we are going to pick the silent workhorse. Now, one thing that I did not mention is what used to be the case is at 35 army experience, we used to pick professional officer corps, but as you probably know, it was heavily nerfed in one of the recent patches. Now, the reason professional officer corps was great was that it gave you additional experience gain, army experience gain, daily, and it gave you daily command power. And they nerfed it very heavily because they removed both those amazing buffs. Instead, you get a nice 15% extra division experience gain and an okay maximum command power increase plus 30. But compared to before, this is much less relevant. To the point that I don't think professional officer corps is the best choice anymore in here. And I actually now like quick improvisation. That plus 20% planning speed is very nice. And as you can see, this one still gives you daily command power increase or gain, which is very good. Also, the minus 20% commander ability cost is very nice if you do use commander abilities. So I really like quick improvisation now. But as China, later on, we will use proper heritage. And the very nice thing about this is that supply combat penalties on core territory, minus 20%, which might not be huge for most countries, but for us it is absolutely massive, because we will be fighting in China, and all of China is our core state. And then when we fight against Japan, all of the Japanese occupied territories in here are also our core states. So basically we will have a big buff to our divisions. So this one is specifically for Communist China, is absolutely amazing. And there we go, we got our claim on Xinjiang as well. It's time for the last expansion war before the big war. So at this point we are going to force deploy every infantry division that was not deployed already, and we assign them all to our infantry army. We're also going to start recruiting another 24 infantry divisions. We're going to declare war on Xinjiang. We can start the infantry offensive right away, and with the cavalry we try to rush the victory points once again. And this time it looks like they covered the northern front, so we're going to try to sneak in from the south. Next, we're also going to start fabricating a claim on China. Okay, at some point during this war or right after this war, you will get free civilian factories. We are going to do something with our supplies, something very important for the upcoming war. So first of all, we pick reorganize the railway system. And then we're going to build a supply hub in somewhere in here, close to China. And of course we need to connect our supply hubs, because our capital is in here, but they are not connected yet. So make sure to build railways to connect all of these supply hubs. And build the least or the minimum necessary amount of railways in here. So something like these. We just need them to be connected. It doesn't need to be high-level railways, but we want these hubs to be connected. And that's it. We got Xinjiang as well, very easily. We can annex it. And we can start getting ready for the real challenge, which is China. Now, if you look at the map, it's quite amazing. In about 1 year, we became bigger than China. But unfortunately, that's only how it looks, because this is mostly empty wasteland. So the rich part of China is still under Chinese control. So of course, we need to expand in that area next. Now, what we want to do at this point is we want to change all of our cavalry divisions into infantry divisions. These sneaky, backdoor tactic will not work against China, so we now need proper divisions. We're going to use these 5 cavalry divisions to cover this front later on. We can already plan an offensive line in here. As for what was our regular infantry, we're going to set them up to push into this part of China. So try to avoid the river crossing in here. And the idea here is to push this part of China. We're going to use a spearhead here. There are very important victory points and supply hubs in here. So if this offensive is successful, this will determine the war in our favor. This is an incredibly important offensive. We're also going to force deploy everything we can. And we're going to start preparing another army, which will cover this front against China. We can start planning an offensive line. But later on during the war, the main goal for these 2 armies on the sides will be to pin down as many Chinese divisions as possible, while the main army is this one. This is the one that needs to push. The other ones just need to stop them. Now we're also going to change the motorization priority to maximum. We want them to aggressively execute the battle plans, and we also want them to be trained. So we're going to start shift clicking on exercise so that they all get trained to regular level. And at this point, I would also maybe recommend making a save just in case. At least the first part of the run is done successfully. At 150 political power, we're going to pick free trade. Now, here actually an argument could be made for export focus. It could be better, but in the short term, free trade is better for us. So what I usually do is I pick free trade now, and then I switch to export trade later on. Of course, this comes at the cost of additional political power. But what free trade gives us is, well, the extra research speed, that's nice, but especially a 5% extra factory output is very, very important for us at the moment. If you prefer export focus, go for it, no problem. Now, when you complete this focus here, you will get an event, this one, which asks you what to do with the kai-shek. Now, there are several options, but there is only one that is really good for us. And we actually want the Chinese to form the Chinese United Front. It's the only easy way to get Yunnan and Guangxi in the same war. So what we do is, and mind that this is very important, you need to pause the game, and then you need to say that we will ally with them against the Japanese. And what this does is it creates the Chinese United Front and makes us part of the Chinese United Front. But we're also fabricating a claim on China, and we want that claim. So what we're going to do is we're going to immediately leave the faction before unpausing the game. So what we achieve in this way is that the Chinese front exists, and later on Yunnan and Guangxi will join it, which is convenient for us. But we're not part of it, and we can still claim China. Now we're also going to use this chance to start planning a bit of the constructions later on. We build more military factories in the capital and in the 40% provinces. Okay, as soon as we get our claim on China, we're going to start claiming Yunnan. Now, keep in mind that at this point we start being fairly close to the 25% world attention threshold, which usually triggers guarantees from the allies. Now, for China, we're fine, because we already got our claim. For Yunnan, it's going to increase the war tension by 2%, so it gets exactly to 25%. But what I noticed is that by creating the Chinese United Front, the UK tends not to guarantee these Chinese miners. Maybe they consider them to be responsibility of China, I don't know exactly what happens, but I never had issues with guarantees here in China by following this strategy. So that's another big advantage of it. Okay, now at some point you will research the upgraded infantry equipment, but we do not want to upgrade the produced equipment yet, because that will destroy the production efficiency. I made a dedicated guide about this topic, but production efficiency is very important. So we don't want to upgrade our infantry equipment for now. We will keep producing the older one. So you might be wondering, why did we research it if we're not going to upgrade it? Well, this allows us to continue researching further upgrades. And first of all, the next one will improve the stats of our infantry regardless. And then when we unlock the next tier of infantry equipment, we're actually going to switch. So we're basically going to skip one tier and switch directly from this one to this one. Tsingtao, which by the way is the name of a very good Chinese beer. I don't know if the two things are related, hopefully not, but I love Tsingtao. Okay, Japan declared war on China, but it's not time for us to join this war yet. So for now, we will let Japan push into China. One advantage of this is that right now the Chinese have a lot of their divisions on our front. But the hot front is becoming the one with Japan, so they will send some of these divisions over to protect against Japan. And this will weaken this front and make our push a little bit easier later on. So at 150 political power, we're actually going to switch from service by requirement to extensive conscription. And that's because we don't need the additional manpower, and this is actually a very nice boost to our economy. This is a plus 10% factory output, just by switching. So with the last two changes that we made, we changed from closed economy to free trade. That's a plus 15% factory output. And then from service by requirement to extensive conscription, another plus 10% factory output. And we basically boosted our factory output by 25% with just two changes in our economy. That's going to help massively to produce enough infantry equipment. Now, as we complete our claim on Yunnan, we're going to start a new claim on Guangxi. We're also going to force deploy and assign all of the new divisions, and they all go to the army covering this front here. So we should have 3 armies now, the 5 army of cavalry, which is now infantry, 24 infantry in here, and another 24 infantry in here. Now, we also want to add to our infantry template some support artillery. This means that we will also need to train them again, so make sure to train everybody again. Okay, at 100 political power, we are going to pick the infantry expert advisor. Here we go. And we're going to start recruiting another 19 infantry divisions. At this point, though, we want to make sure that reinforcements have the higher priority, so make sure to select high priority for reinforcements up here. Moreover, we can stop training our divisions when they reach the trained level, no need to bring them all the way to regular. So in terms of artillery MIOs, here we are going to use a slightly different priority, and we're going to prioritize the production efficiency gain and cap, so we have an overall higher output. Okay, meanwhile, we completed our last claim on Guangxi. We are not going to use these claims for now. By the way, since it is a core territory, the claim doesn't have an expiration date, so we can use them at any time. And for now, we're not going to declare war on any of these countries. Now, at 100 political power, we're going to pick the military theorist advisor. We are going to pick proper heritage, which I mentioned earlier. Again, it's amazing because we get that supply combat penalties on core territories basically everywhere we're going to fight. And we're going to switch doctrine. Although mass assault can be okay, in our case, superior firepower is going to be much better. I will make a series of dedicated videos for doctrines and templates in the upcoming weeks. But superior firepower actually benefits a lot small templates with support companies. So in addition to being very good early on, we get the best perks almost right away. Superior firepower is a very solid choice at this point. So we pick the first doctrine and then we continue to pick the best or one of the best tactics as our favorite tactic. We also give the tactic to our general if he can pick it. We make sure that we pick the spirit as well. And then we pick as many, probably one additional doctrines as possible. Now, it's a big moment because at this time, we're also going to start our push into China. I would recommend making a save here because the next war is a big and tricky one. So we can slow down the speed a little bit and we can declare war on China and immediately start every single offensive that we have available. But again, the important one is this one here. So we want to be able to push in here. Let's see how it goes. Now, when we start... this is a very annoying bug, and we really didn't need this now. So I will have to reload the game because we need to be able to see the capitulation level of China. So there is no other way when this bug happens that you cannot click here. The only way to fix it is reloading the game. So we need to do that right now. So right now, Japan has 99% of the war participation, and of course this is not great. So what we need is we need to get to something between 16% to 20% of the total participation by the end of the war. That's our goal. If you get that much with the strategy that I'm going to show you for the peace conference, we're going to take everything from Japan. But we do need between 17 and 20% of the war score. So this war is very important. Not only it's important to push, but it is important to do it correctly. Okay, very happy that we were able to push in here. Here we can abuse this push a little bit. As you can see, they don't have divisions in here. So let's try to expand by micromanaging a little bit our units here. Try to stop them from reinforcing and expand as much as possible. Okay, we were also able to get this place, but see, our units are very stupid. They're pushing in there. I don't want to push in there. I want to push down here. Okay, we are being quite successful here. Some minor micromanagement is needed, but nothing massive. That's fantastic. So if you check the worst participation now, we're already at 16%. Now we want to boost it a bit above 20% because we will lose war score a bit later. After this initial push, we're going to struggle a lot to keep the war score up. Nice, we even got an encirclement. Look at that. From time to time, you need to rearrange the divisions of on this front because the Japanese will be pushing a lot more than us. So, of course, we don't need to cover the front against Japan. Instead, we can give a hand to the other army in here. Very, very happy with this first push. Now, this one, actually, I tested it in a way that if you follow this strategy, even if you just let them push without doing anything, without any micromanagement, it should give you enough war score by the end of the war. But if you do micromanage them a little bit like I did here, nothing crazy, you will increase your war score significantly and be a little bit safer with the peace conference. Okay, things are going very well with this push, and we got 26% of the war participation. These should be enough for the rest of the war, even if we cannot do anything else from now on. At 100 political power, we're going to pick army regrouping, and we're going to force deploy all of the infantry divisions that we were training, assign them to the cavalry, the former cavalry army, which now will be a full army of 24 as well. We can reassign them a little bit and try to keep the pressure up on the entire front. After conquering this part of China, the front will stabilize a lot more. It will become a lot harder to push, especially to get over this river. It will be almost impossible for us. So from now on, the main job will be done by the Japanese. We need them to push and take these big victory points along the coast. That's why our war score is going to decrease a bit, but with a starting war score of 26%, we should be totally fine. Of course, we keep pushing, even with red numbers, it doesn't matter, because the land combat damage is going to play an important role. As you can see, we get war participation from occupation, of course, and then from land combat damage, and also from casualties. Those are our casualties, by the way, so by dying, by losing men, we actually gain war score. And war score is the most important thing here, so losing a lot of our divisions, well, not the full divisions, but manpower, is great, because we have infinite manpower, so by losing more men, we get more war score, which is more important. It's a very brutal strategy, but this channel is called Machiavellian Strategist after all, so that is to be expected. Now, at 150 political power, we're going to pick war economy. We're also going to start recruiting another 24 infantry divisions, and we're going to build more military factories in our capital. Now, around this point, it's time to start checking the capitulation level of China, because we do not want China to capitulate just yet, so we need to be very careful. When they are about within 1% from capitulating, so there is still quite a bit to go. Usually the Japanese need to take at least Wuhan, Nanchang, Shanghai for sure, and usually until Changde goes down, China doesn't capitulate. In any case, we need to pay attention to it, because just before they capitulate, we want to declare war on Yunnan and Guangxi and bring them too into this war. At 100 political power, we are going to pick the army logistics expert, and usually around this time, China is about to capitulate. I usually wait until literally 1% or maybe 2% if you want to be safe before declaring war on Yunnan and Guangxi. Okay, 1%, now it's starting to be a bit risky, so you can start the war on Yunnan and Guangxi. And what this does, in addition to bringing them into the war, is they will immediately join the Chinese United Front, and the surrender level of China goes down to 10%. So the war will be extended for a bit longer. But China is still the only one that needs to go down. So if you're lucky, sometimes you can be a lot closer to Changde at this point, and you can try to push it yourself. Alternatively, you need to rely on the Japanese to do the right thing, and the Japanese have the habit of never doing the right thing. So usually they push south instead of pushing China. But again, we're a bit in their hands at the moment. That's why we wait as much as possible before we do this. So hopefully China still goes down fairly fast. Not sure what the Japanese are doing, but of course they're not doing the right thing and not pushing in here. So there is some RNG as to when this war ends. Unfortunately, we don't have full control over it. I really wonder what Japan is doing. I mean, usually they are stupid because they push Guangxi, but in this case they are not even doing that. They are literally doing nothing. By the way, this is why if you purchase the membership and you have access to the spreadsheet, you will find a list of focuses that you can pick or skip if the war is over. You can also find them in the description of the video. So usually at this time the war is already over, but if it is not yet, you keep going and pick those focuses. Finally, China goes down. This took a bit longer than usual, although in my spreadsheet I wrote that the timeline for this is between March and August 1939, so it's July. It's not too bad. And the good thing about this is we got a solid 20% of the war participation, which means we're totally fine. Actually, ending this war too fast might be a little tricky for the continuation of the strategy. So at this point I would recommend making a save. And now the peace conference is going to be a big part of this guide. So let me talk about it in detail for once. We only got 21%, maybe you will have 17%, and Japan has the vast majority of the war score. So how come we get the most out of this? And now in most guides, you will see people picking these cheap states first and leaving Japan something along the coast. But actually, in all peace conferences in HOI4, if you want something from your opponent, you always want to contest them first. And that is because not all provinces have the same cost. The cost is affected by several things. One of which is who is occupying them. So of course Japan is occupying this part of China, which means for them it is a priority to take that part of China. Meaning in the peace conference Japan is not going to claim this land in here, it's going to claim this land in here. And taking something in the peace conference which was already claimed by your opponent is going to be a lot more expensive. So ideally we want to claim the same states, the same provinces that we think Japan is going to claim. Now the fact that these provinces are our cores will make them a lot cheaper for us to claim, and that makes it so that even with just 20% of the war score we are going to be able to take everything. So let me show you how to do that. First of all, we are going to annex these provinces along the coast. I know that Japan will prioritize this area, and so I want to take it right away from Japan. And if we have some spare points we can spend them in there, but this is the priority. Now let's see what happens. Okay, so we got Japan, they claimed 2 of the states that we also claimed, but now for them it's going to be a lot more expensive to take this stuff because we claimed it first. And this is basically the peace conference already done. From now on Japan is going to struggle a lot to take what we already claimed. So we proceed to claim the rest of China here. Japan is trying to take one more, but basically it's too late for them. And then only after that we start claiming the puppets of China. We annex all of them. Make sure that you annex everything everywhere. Let's see. Okay, so Japan is contesting, but the thing is, for them it's incredibly expensive, and for us it is much cheaper. Now, one more important thing to mention. Japan has enough points. If they contested us, they would be able to take these states. But the reason this strategy works is that apparently the AI is less likely to contest a state when it is a lot more expensive for them and when the opponent has a core on it. And since we have cores everywhere, Japan will be very quick to give up on all of these states that they could actually take. So Japan still has 5,400 points, but it doesn't matter because they gave up on everything. And with only 21% of the war score, and as you can see we had some margin, 16-17% would be enough, we're able to take all of China. Keep in mind, it's very important that you claim first the states that Japan is going to claim. You need to start with the cost. Otherwise, if you claim this one first, you will not have enough points to contest from Japan the coastal area of China. And having the Japanese puppets in here, or Japan itself, is going to make it massively more difficult to continue the run. So it's very important that you take everything in the peace conference, as I showed you here. This is one of the key points of this strategy. Okay, nothing else we can take, so we're very, very happy with this peace conference. We can pause because now Communist China owns China. That's not all, however, because Japan is still here, Japan is not going anywhere, and Japan still owns territories which are our cores. So we need to take all of that back. But that will be in the next video, in the next part of this guide. I want to leave you with some suspense as to what will happen next. So we will do the setup for Japan in the next video. Of course, if you own a membership to the channel, you will be able to see that in advance, and you also can check the spreadsheet in which that part of the guide is covered. But the guide will be released very soon, next week, so you don't have to wait for long to see how we manage the big challenge versus Japan and how we manage to conquer Japan itself as China and absolutely without a fleet. So that will be interesting. Make sure not to miss that video. If you enjoyed this video and this guide, I worked a lot on it, I optimized it, I think, to a very high level, very satisfied with the results. So if you liked it, please do not forget to support the channel by liking the video, subscribing, and leaving me a comment. Let me know what you thought about it. And if you have any ideas to further improve this strategy, of course. If you encounter any issues, feel free to let me know in the comments. I will try to help you all. I always check and read all of the comments. And of course, guys, if you stayed with me until now, thank you for watching. And I will see you guys very soon in the next part of this guide. Bye bye.